to work. We have almost 3/4 of people saying that in our study, that they work for someone else, but we have over 1/4 who say that they work for themselves or someone else. And what we're starting to get at with that finding is what we've seen in the news and what we know about is the gig economy. And actually in our latest wave that we're just fielding right now, we're going to be asking more questions about this idea of the side hustle, which for myself is not one of my favorite terms, but to get at this idea that people are either piecing together work or doing additional work. Now, we wanted to get at this mindset around work, and we asked some questions around the kind of changes that people see. And people are kind of a little bit split, though there's a bit more majority leaning toward change. So 60% agree there will be more flexible and part-time work in the future. 60% also agree that machines or technology will take over their jobs. And we know that there is and has been a lot of news on this, and also some fear around this. And certainly that fear can be greater among people who have a lot to deal with, and the ability to change careers or to go back to school can be limited. So definitely want to acknowledge that this change is real, and this change can also create questions for people or anxiety for people as they think about the future. I also argue that it creates opportunities, but that can be, certainly not equally distributed for everybody. Now, we're also seeing that almost 2/3 agree that there will be fewer people who work in a physical office space or location. Now, I kind of want to tie all those findings together and those trends, that there are these changes. There are more part-time workers, there are more people piecing together different kinds of work, and show you an app that I came across in my research that helps people who are self-employed. And I want to just have my caveat here that this app, which is called Hurdler, I'm using as an example. I'm not associated with Hurdler in any way. What I'm sharing with you is publicly available information and what I found. And maybe there are even some of you who know more about it. But what I thought was really interesting about this app is that it was designed initially for drivers, particularly of Uber and Lyft, although it's also used or marketed to freelancers and realtors and Airbnb host type people. But it allows those drivers, for example, to have their money centralized, their income centralized in one location, an app that they can manage their expenses for that particular job, as well as manage taxes and retirement planning. So these are some of the tools that are starting to come about. Now, with that kind of background in mind around work, let's talk about what I call this new digital money mindset. One of the questions that we asked on our study is to have people self-categorize that into whether they manage or want to manage all their money digitally as much as possible, whether they don't want any digital automation or they want a mix. And what you're seeing here on the far left is 44% of the people we surveyed want to manage a mix with digital apps and by themselves. That's a bit more than the 40% who say they want to manage as much digitally as possible, and the 16% with no digital automation. Now, when we look at these results by generation, it shifts. And you can see right in the middle there, millennials, about half of them want to manage as much of their financial lives digitally as possible with their mobile device or computer. Now, to the far right, and this is relevant to those of you who work with boomers, is that's really not the case for boomers. They're much less likely, about half as likely, to want to manage their lives digitally. But you can see where the trend is going here. Now, when we ask a question in a different way that doesn't mention an app, we asked people if they would want to manage their money from one central online platform where they can see deposits, spending, and savings in one place. We see the vast majority of people do want to do this, and there really aren't those big generational differences. So my interpretation of this is that that's really the difference of a comfort level of thinking about doing this on an app on a phone versus doing this online somewhere on a computer. But this desire for more centralized digital money management is there. Now, then when we kind of shift the question a little bit and ask if people would want to keep their money in one digital app, that has, for deposits and payments, that has broad appeal too. But again, you kind of see where you get some of those generational differences. With 3/4 of millennials saying they would want to keep their money in one digital app for deposits and payments. So think about, that Hurdler example of that app for Uber drivers where the money from driving is going in there, and they can also manage their expenses from that app. And a related example I wanted to share with you is that is another app called Current, and I actually use this app with my teenagers. I think I was one of the first people who signed up for it because it just launched in May of last year. We signed up for it somewhat out of desperation in September in our family, when I have one kid who's really good at managing money, actually likes to save everything in a plastic bag and look at it and count it. And then I have another teenager who is really bad at money management, who will spend everything the second she gets it, and often on things like frappuccinos at Starbucks, which drives me somewhat crazy. So we put the app on both the kids' phones, and it actually is designed for parents and teenagers. You can set it up to mark chores and allowance. I'll be the first to acknowledge that this is, for people who have the luxury of having allowance for their kids. But you can also have babysitting money go in here, or different kinds of jobs. And you can have the kids can transfer it to a savings account. They could also give the money to charity and put it in a bucket for charitable giving, and it's linked to a debit card, so they can see how they're spending their money and manage it all in one place. And I, as a parent, can also see it all in one place and see how they're spending their money. So again, another tool that I think is really cool, that has everything in one place, and this is what my kids are growing up with. Now, I would like to put another poll up here and kind of talk about this in terms of the percent of you who have payment apps as we get into the next section. I can see the results coming in. I'm going to wait for a few more people to answer.
I'm curious, Lila, are the results what you expected to see?
They just shifted dramatically. So I was seeing half the people saying never paid digitally, but it's shifting. So yeah, this is interesting. So I'm gonna just give it another couple of seconds here and close that and share it with you all. So here you can see, perhaps we don't have a lot of millennials on the phone. I don't want to jump to conclusions. That would have been another good question to ask. And starting at the top, we have just a small percent who say they always pay digitally, 13% who say usually, about a third who say sometimes, about a quarter who say rarely, and about a quarter who say that you never pay digitally. So good representation. So we don't have heavy digital payment users on the phone, but we definitely have quite a few. So you'll be interested in seeing what we saw in our research results, which was a big shift in how our survey respondents answered our question about where they see the biggest impact that technology will have in 5 years. Again, we asked them to choose one of 4 options: how we make money, how we spend money, and how we save money, and how we invest it. And between spring and fall last year, we saw a shift in people's focus from how we make money to how we spend it. Spend was at 23%, and it increased to
Lila,
34%. Yep. Can you see
okay.
it now?
Yeah, I just thought I'd let you know.
Yes, thank you. I haven't gotten used to that yet. So here you do see that shift towards spending, and we have a few hypotheses about this. One is that we may see seasonal or cyclical changes in this. Spring is close to tax time, fall is close to holidays and pressure and actual shopping. And another hypothesis is, and which I believe is just that digital payments and the way that we pay, there are so many more options, even in that 6-month period between spring and fall last year, and a lot more news about it. And then I'll just mention here, we see just a slight shift, nothing really statistically significant, marginally significant between savings and investing. So we just did that poll. I'm going to move on to the results that we have. That are how people are using different kinds of payment methods and really what's top of wallet. So we ask a question where we ask people to literally kind of drag and drop these different options for what's in their wallet to get at what's at the top of the wallet. And we ask that for in-person payments today and 5 years from now, and then we also ask it for online payments. So what we found is that people tell us that today they're primarily using debit and cash. And again, this is general population. As a side note, when we do studies among affluent people, we see credit tends to be top of wallet. But you can see here that apps actually rise to the top to be 25% and right in line with cash in terms of what people tell us they'll do 5 years from now. And to kind of support that trend, I did want to share with you some results that Starbucks published, which is that mobile payments accounted for 30% of their transactions last summer, according to the report. And what we also have seen is that there's really kind of a trend toward more of these digital payments, in part by companies to actually help the unbanked or underbanked. There's a belief that the ability to pay with your phone can address some of the problems with not having a bank account. There's an estimated 9 million households in the US who don't have bank accounts or access to a financial institution. And about 20% of these are unbanked adults who get their wages and pay their bills in cash. So the ability to actually go away from cash and have digital methods of payments could be very helpful and not have the risks associated with managing cash, not losing cash, keeping track of cash. I also want to mention here that you'll see this percent here, 5% cryptocurrency in the future, 4% something new that hasn't been invented yet. And what we're seeing is that consumers are giving a nod to new technologies, acknowledging that they're coming up and that there could be something totally different that they're using in the future. Now, when we look at online payments, we see something even bigger in terms of digital payments. 35% of the consumers we talk to tell us that they use PayPal now for online payments, and that stays pretty similar, 32% 5 years from now. Debit and credit go down while all these other payment methods kind of see somewhat of an increase. And again, this 7% cryptocurrency or 7% something new that hasn't been invented yet. Now, I've been really, I don't pay with cryptocurrency. I don't have any investments in Bitcoin, though I've definitely considered it. But I've been reading all these articles that where people who are in the payment space are talking a lot about how cryptocurrency is going to take over how we pay or be the backbone of how we pay in the future. So now we saw in our poll that of you all that a third of you sometimes pay digitally. If we add up the sometimes, usually, and always, we get actually about half who pay digitally versus about half of you who rarely or never pay digitally. Now, when we look at the general U.S. population, we have about half of U.S. adults who say they use payment apps. We have another 7% who say they have them on their phone, but they're not actually using them. We do see generational differences here, where we have 55% of millennials who use payment apps. But again, boomers, about a third of them use payment apps. Now, right now in our study, we separate digital payment apps from peer-to-peer or P2P payment methods. The lines are blurring there, so I'll give you an example. PayPal, which was originally when it launched really for peer-to-peer, you paid someone for something that you bought from them, someone you knew, or you paid someone back. Then it was used for online payments. We have Google Pay, we have Google Pay Send, which is peer-to-peer. We have Apple Pay, and we have Apple Pay Cash, which is peer-to-peer. So right now in our study, we're still keeping them separate, and we ask about different brands. And we're seeing that P2P is not quite as popular in general as regular payment apps, but PayPal, for example, would fall into both categories. Venmo is still considered just P2P. Now, 36% of the general population tells us that they use P2P. And when we ask what they're using it for, and this may be a little bit surprising, I don't know, we found it a little bit surprising, is that 71% say they're using it to pay for a product or service, versus that half who are saying they're using it to pay someone back or send money as a gift or to split costs, which was really kind of the original purpose. A lot of people are using it to pay for a product or service. I know now when I go and get my hair cut and I tip the person who cut my hair, she doesn't take cash anymore. She actually wants to be paid with Venmo, which is great for me because I hardly ever have cash in my wallet. But that to me was a big change. Okay, so now going from payments to our final section here, and what I call the new saving and investing mindset, which is to me one and the same. Talk about blurring lines. I am starting to see that the lines between savings and investing are blurry. I would say partly because the interest rate has been so low for years and the investment market has been going gangbusters until the recent market volatility, that the appeal of a savings account has actually gone down. Now, when we ask people if they would want to have their money automatically saved into an account of their choice based on their preferences, we get 85% of US adults who tell us that they would like that. And again, we don't see huge differences across generation. Now, one way to look at this would be like, oh, well, that's been going on forever. I have $25 put from my checking account to my savings account every month. The way that we intended this question and the way that I would interpret it is that you have more choices than that. You can have that money go into different types of accounts, including investing accounts. And we're exploring that more in the current wave that we're doing of the study, and we'll keep looking at it. Now, here's our final poll here. And this is about where do you see the biggest need for technology to help the people in the communities you serve? Is it managing debt, keeping to a budget, including help with looking at income and expenses, or is it making it easier to save and grow money for the future? Give that a few more seconds. Okay. I see the numbers kind of evening out or kind of slowing down, so I'm going to close that and share it. And the biggest need is this keeping to a budget, which makes sense to me. We have also 18% managing debt, 15% making it easier to save and grow money for the future. So a lot of what we just talked about are some of the things related to keeping to a budget. And this, a presentation isn't about budget education, though I would absolutely argue that foundational to improving people's financial lives is helping them make the choices that will get them to a place of sticking to a budget and living within their means. That is absolutely foundational. What I'm going to be talking about in this next section is the saving and growing money, because I think what I see happening is that so many people get stuck in debt and trying to just catch up and keep to a budget, that of course it makes it harder to get to a place of saving and growing money. And when they finally can actually do that, they don't necessarily have the tools to do that. And again, I think that's an area that's changing. So let me go back to the slides here. When we ask people about savings and investing, we ask them what they think, how much money they think they need to save and how much money they think they need to invest. So in both cases, saving and investing, about half the people tell us that any amount is worthwhile. When they give us a specific dollar amount, the median number for savings is about $500, and the median number for investing is about $1,000. Now, this next slide, there's a lot on the page here. And what's really important here is when we ask people where they're putting their savings, it's not necessarily what we would expect. So it certainly wasn't what I would expect. And when I share these results with people at financial institutions, this is a slide that's usually a shocker. So on the far right, we have savings accounts. And I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go right to left. Then 19% checking account, 13% investment account, 13% cash in a safe place. And I'll pause there and say, when we used to ask questions like this, and we asked, do you keep your cash under your mattress kind of questions, that number was really high. In this case, among U.S. adults, it's about the same as a vesting account, but it's actually not that much higher than what they tell us, which is putting it in a PayPal or Venmo account. Now, the results that you're seeing here are for millennials, but I'll tell you for the US population, that PayPal Venmo account is about 7%. Kind of surprising. And what we found, and maybe some of you who use PayPal do this, people don't move their money back into the underlying bank account. They leave it there to make payments from. And my own crystal ball is that we'll continue to see more of that. So it means that when you're working with people who are managing to a budget and thinking about income and expenses, if PayPal or using a digital app is kind of core to how they're making payments, or maybe they're shopping a lot online and spending too much, or have a revolving credit card debt, it's important to understand what they're using to make payments and how they're managing that. And are there ways that you can help them look at what's in their PayPal account or how they're using it to actually track income and expenses and kind of get to that place where they can really pay attention to what their income is and how they're spending it. Now, the next couple of slides are a bit lofty in the sense that they're really focused on investing. I do want to say that our U.S. adult population, the median income was just over $50,000. So these are not, especially affluent people. They represent the typical U.S. adult household. And when we asked them if they were given $100,000 to invest, so they have to invest it, and it's a big chunk of money, would they put it with an investment professional? Would they invest the money themselves, or would they put it with a computer-based portfolio? We see things being pretty well split, with still most people, not most, but 43% preferring a professional, a person. Just over a third would manage the money themselves or invest it themselves, and 20% would put it with a computer customized portfolio. And I bring that point to this group here because, again, it ties into the comfort level with computers and putting money in one place and keeping track of it in one place. And then my final note on that is when we ask people to choose between a computer or a human and which one does certain aspects of investing better, what we find is that Gen Z, and I can see my little person is blocked out there, but Gen Z that actually chooses computers over people a lot more than other generations. So this generation coming up, their comfort level with computers translates into a comfort level with computers being kind of the backbone of investments, providing better performance over time, costing less in fees, and even to a certain degree, certainly more than other generations, taking their whole financial situation into account. So finally what I want to say is that there are tools out there that can be used for saving and helping people improve their financial health. These are a bunch of different ones. They do different things. I'll just mention the one in the lower right-hand corner. Acorns is kind of a Save the Change app. So is an app that allows people to take money that's kind of a rough amount of money, say 27 cents, and put it in a savings account, and that accumulates over time. Now, I've heard for some people that can be hundreds or thousands of dollars. And PayPal and Venmo actually have a partnership with Acorn. So they're making that connection with their app. So kind of coming back to how people are spending, and are they using PayPal, and do they have money on there? Are they able to connect those and actually start saving some money in some reasonable ways? So last point here, and this is kind of a little, I don't want to sound like I'm lecturing because I know you know all this and there are lots of challenges, but when it comes to money going digital, there's kind of three things: learning, educating, and supporting your community. So learning, understanding how your clients and communities use technology to manage their money today, help educate them, and also yourselves on what's available and how you can use these tools. Shift the conversation with your clients and communities to educate them on how to manage their money digitally. These tools should really help because they can see everything in one place and really track it, and the math is done for people. And then support them, help their communities learn how to make the tools work for them. And so with that, we can open it up for questions. We have a few minutes left.
Lila?
Yeah.
I need you to hand it back to me.
Okay.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Lila. Everyone clearly was enjoying that because people have been with us the whole time. So since we're running later than we expected, let me just tell you before we try to get some of the many questions in that our financial social work certification is self-study and self-paced, and you can just quickly read what that's all about here. And our graduates get to use all the materials one-on-one with their clients, and that cost is $595. I wanted to tell all of you that our June webinar on June 14th is on behavioral economics and how it can benefit clients. If you're not familiar with behavioral economics, you should be, and you will not want to miss this. And then our July webinar is helping clients cope with the costs of medical care. There's some new work being done in this area. It's very exciting and very important. So those are our next two webinars. We also have our brand new financial social work ebook out, what it is, what it does, why it matters in all economic times. You can download that from our website. And we also have a 12-month series of beginning your personal journey of financial self-discovery. Each month is a free new download that you can share with clients. So here we are, ready for Q&A. You can see on this final slide where you can go to download Lila's important and beautifully done ebook. So you can either copy that or take a look at it while we are taking some questions. Okay, here we go. All right. A couple questions about cryptocurrency. Anything you can answer within our time frame, Lala?
Oh, I wish I was an expert on cryptocurrency. I definitely is one of those topics that it's better if I say nothing than try to explain it. But, as much as I can say, it's based on recording in a financial ledger. How it translates into actual currency that, you and I would use on a regular basis, I don't see yet how that's going to happen. But I also am completely open to the possibility that it could happen in 5 years.
Well, I've tried to understand it. Can't say that I do. Maybe we should do a webinar on it. I'm not sure. We had asked for people if they were from somewhere other than the States to share that with us. So we do have someone with us from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, what is cryptocurrency? Would you classify Acorn as people or computer is a question.
Oh, in terms of the savings app, that's interesting. I think of it as a technology, though, there are people behind it, and maybe they'll integrate more advice in the future. But my understanding of it is more as a savings app. So computer.
I just have to say that someone shared with us, Lila, that this was one of the best ever Center for Financial Social Work webinars she's attended. And she's probably attended a lot, so good job. A couple of people are writing in to thank you, Lila, for the effectiveness of digital innovations in financial future. What does the effect of people's existing financial education on this? I'm not sure. What do you think that means? Maybe she's wondering how the digital will fit into, our big movement in recent years, with underserved populations and all populations, because I know, Lila, did you understand how we continue to raise financially illiterate generations? So if you'd like to clear that up, we can give that a try to answer that. Were there any concerns among the survey participants about being electronically hacked if all their info is in one place?
Yeah, these are all great questions. And we're actually asking more about security and privacy in our next wave. So we haven't gotten into that. We definitely see in other research that it's a concern, and I would consider that part of financial education. So to make sure that if you're working with someone who's using one of these tools, that they're also aware that they need to change their passwords, they need to guard their passwords, and those kinds of things, so that that's less likely to happen. But these apps also, have a lot of tools in place to make sure that these things don't happen, or that you're alerted if they do, just like if you were to lose your credit card, or some other system gets hacked.
Well, I think we're pretty good on questions. So you've provided important answers, and so many people are thanking you and saying how wonderfully informative and how really great it was. And Vonda and I certainly want to thank you. It was really, really wonderful. And we're not the only ones that think that. So thank you so much. Someone shared that she's sad that she missed some of the slides and hopes that we'll present it again. Well, I didn't exactly remember to start the recording in time, so we did miss part of it, but I did record the rest of it. So you will be receiving that sometime next week. I wish everybody a wonderful, beautiful rest of today, and look forward to seeing you back here learning about behavioral economics next year. Lila, thank you again and again.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Rita.
Bye now.